Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our global nimble community. This is a special day. It's rarely that I get to do a webinar with somebody that I respect so deeply as I do Mark Schaefer. Not only for the 7 books that he's authored about how you could be better, smarter, faster at marketing, but more importantly, the human being that Mark is. And you'll learn a little bit more about Mark if you don't already know him by just reading his words or walking in his digital footprint. Mark is a global recognized blogger, speaker, educator, and has one of the top marketing blogs in the world. He is the executive director of Schaefer Marketing Solutions, specializing in marketing strategy and social media workshops for clients and startups around the world, such as Adidas, Dell, AT&T, the Air Force, and the UK government. He teaches at Rutgers, and as I said, he's the author of over 7 books. The latest is Marketing Rebellion, which we're going to talk about here today. Mark, say hello to the audience.
Well, I'm so delighted, and John, I share your enthusiasm for creating this content together today because you are one of the great men in our industry, and I think we're in terms of our approach to life and our customers, we're very, very similar. So it's just awesome to be doing this with you today.
So let's go ahead and cover through the agenda. What are we going to learn today, Mark?
Well, what we're going to learn about a little bit, and of course, this is a big long book, and we have a very short webinar. But I want to hit a few of the highlights and specifically help people think about what they need to do about it. And a key idea is that our businesses in the past were built through advertising impressions. That's how we have many of our most famous brands. But today, those techniques, those ads don't work like they used to. And the future will be built on human impressions. We need to be less focused on technology and more focused on the constant human truths, the human needs, how our customers are crying out to us, and our marketing has to be more about them uh, than it is about us. We're going to start by talking a little bit about why loyalty is dying and what we need to do about it. And then we're going to have some very specific ideas that we can discuss to talk about how marketing needs to change in this environment.
I'm super excited. Let's go.
All right. So, as I mentioned, or as John mentioned, I've got this new book out called Marketing Rebellion: The Most Human Company Wins. And I want to start by talking about this very unusual idea of loyalty dying. Now, I teach at Rutgers University in their grad program. I've taught there for 10 years, and there's only one slide I've used in 10 years, and it's this one. I call it Marketing in One Slide. This is what we're all trying to do. Over time, we're trying to create some interaction, some provocation with our customer that leads to higher and higher levels of engagement. Starts with awareness, that'll lead to trust, and eventually loyalty. And I've been in marketing more than 30 years. This is the magic, right? As our customers become loyal, not only are they buying stuff from us, but they're bringing their friends and family too. Now, I'm here to tell you today, this slide that I've used in 10 years of teaching is also wrong. As I was working on this project and immersed in a lot of new customer initiatives, I came across this research, this theme over and over again, like this from Accenture. Our research revealed that consumers are increasingly likely to have a negative reaction to a company's attempt to earn their loyalty. Now, as a marketer, I'm thinking, what? This is what I do. I want our customers to be loyal, but the evidence is undeniable. It's not just Accenture. It's McKinsey, it's Deloitte, it's all these big research companies. Loyalty is in decline. In fact, McKinsey shows here that 87% of our customers shop around. Only 13% we can count on being loyal. And this is a dramatic change from just a few years ago. Another big conclusion from my book is that the customers are in control now. 2/3 of our marketing is occurring without us. The customers are in the control. The customers are the marketers. So this is the first idea we have to think about in adjusting to this new world. How do we get invited to that 2/3? This is where the action is occurring today. The customers are communicating among themselves. They're establishing the brand among themselves. How do we get to that 2/3? We can't buy our way in. We have to be invited. It takes a new mindset. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I was starting in business, we looked at the world as a mass market. We had mass advertising and public relations and publicity. We just saw everybody as our potential market. Today, our customers have self-selected into like-minded islands. We've done that today. This webinar is a like-minded island. All the people on here have an affinity for Nimble, or maybe they have an affinity for John or for me or the topic. But all of the people on this webinar today, we've self-selected into a like-minded island. We self-select into like-minded islands for sports, for music, for things going on in our community. And the idea is, how do we get invited to this island? We can't advertise our way on. We can't algorithm our way on. I just turned algorithm into a verb, John. I hope you appreciate that. So we have to be invited.
Mark, I'm a math computer science major, and I didn't do well in English, so
okay. That one went over your head, but that's okay. I just wanted to make sure you appreciated that. So here's the new mindset that we need to adopt, and this is a dramatic and difficult shift. A brand is no longer what we're saying it is. The brand is being defined by our customers. It's what consumers tell each other it is. The customers are the marketers, and we have to find a way to help them do their job. So the main idea of the new book is, how do we get over into this 2/3? And one of the main conclusions is that marketers today are too obsessed with technology. Technology has become the enemy of great marketing. Not because technology is bad, because it's so good. It's so easy, and it's so inexpensive, and it's so intoxicating to think that we can buy an email list of 1 million names, 1 million email addresses for $9.99. It's so intoxicating to do these robocalls. You look on your phone and you think it's somebody that you know because it's in your area code, or maybe it's showing a number of someone you even know, and it's a robocall. That's conning people. That's using technology to erect barriers between our companies and our customers. And what we need to use technology for, need to use technology in a way that's invisible. And Nimble is a great example. Nimble doesn't erect barriers. Nimble takes down barriers to allow us to connect in more authentic and human ways. So one of the ideas in this book is what I call this manifesto for human-centered marketing. And there's these 10 ideas that are sort of the main concepts of the book. I have this manifesto like halfway through the book, and I've got this web address here that you can actually, if you want this, you can download this colorful manifesto for yourself, and you can hang it in your office and say, yes, this is what I'm going to do. This is important. And we have no choice because this is what our customers expect. So our time is short, and I don't have time to go through all 10 of these, but I'm going to go through 5. And as John said, we're going to have time for discussion at the end. So as you hear these ideas, if you have questions or comments about that, I invite you to add that to the chat box so that John and I can address it at the end. So the first idea is to stop doing what customers hate. Get out there and find out what customers love. So and go do that what customers love. Now, this seems so obvious, but we do so many things. I already mentioned some of them, like robocalls, we use technology in so many ways to annoy people. And in the field of medicine, we use technology to extend human life. And in physics, we're using technology to look into the origins of the universe. And in marketing, we're using technology to annoy people. And we just have to stop. So the first step toward this human-centered view of marketing is to look at your own company. Put yourself in the role of the consumer and think about, am I doing things that people hate? I had a blog post recently about this woman in the UK who read my book, and she realized she was contributing to the problem, and she was spamming people. And she always kind of in the back of her mind was worried about this, that maybe she was doing things that people hated, and she had to admit that she was, and she stopped doing it. She scrapped her system, and she started to call people and started to talk to people, and it completely changed the course of her business. She had 2 new customers in the first day. She had 40 new sales leads at the end of week 1, 90 new sales leads at the end of week 2. This is Martin Lindstrom. I feature him in my book. Martin is one of my marketing heroes. He wrote a really cool book called Small Data that I would encourage you to look into. Martin is a marketing anthropologist. He gets out with customers into their homes, into their workspaces to talk to people and find out how we can create new innovations, how we can tease marketing wisdom from his observations of what's going on in real life. And he has this quote in the book that he gave a talk to 5,000 marketing leaders in New York, and he asked them to raise their hand if they had been out and talking to their customers, their real customers, in the last year, having one conversation with a real customer in the last year. Out of 5,000 customers, 19 raised their hand. Marketing is sick. We're over relying on technology. The wisdom isn't going to come through a social media dashboard. It's going to come from connecting to people, connecting to them online, connecting to them on real life, even in a phone call. Get out and hear your customers. That's where the truth is. That's where the wisdom is.
Hey, Mark, can I share a story with you?
Oh, I'd love that, John.
Okay. So I was having dinner with the co-founder of Cornerstone On Demand. Have you heard of that company? It's a technology company.
No, I don't think so.
They're like an $8 billion company. They own computer learning for HR resources. And they started out as a SaaS-based company selling like a Lynda learning platform for anybody to build learning systems and put a paywall in front of it. And they weren't getting traction. But there was a small community of users that were using that platform internally within their corporations to share learning materials for the team members. And they listened to that customer and danced with them and iterated and evolved into the $8 billion Cornerstone On Demand company that dominates that space. And that's what happens when you swim with your constituency and have conversations and you listen and learn and evolve.
I love that. I love that. And it's a great example of the importance of this human connection and understanding these human needs. And that's one of the reasons why I love Nimble so much, because we're going to move into this next point that, Nimble is basically the human CRM. It's the human CRM. It's invisible technology that enables these connections. So, as I said, we can't be using technology that keeps these barriers between us. It has to reduce barriers. Technology should be used to help your company be more compassionate, receptive, fascinating, and useful. And this was a sort of a revelation I had when I was writing my book. And I just had this realization that people had become so obsessed with technology, we were losing sight of what marketing is supposed to be. And I reflected on why I'm in marketing. And I reflected on this. I opened up this textbook from Dr. Philip Kotler when I was a junior in my undergrad classes. And Dr. Kotler said, marketing is a combination of anthropology, psychology, and sociology. Isn't that cool? Who wouldn't want to be a major in marketing, right? Anthropology, psychology, sociology, marketing is all things human. It's connected, it's really understanding the psychology and the sociology. The anthropology is like what Martin does, right? He goes out and actually lives with people and flies with people on planes if he's working for an airline. He gets down into the nooks and crannies of their lives, and that's where the truth is. The truth is in the customer conversations. Marketing is all things human, and it makes me sad that we've lost that, because to so many people today, marketing is all things technology. Now, another key idea for the book is, and this sort of blows people's minds a bit, one of the conclusions that McKinsey made with some of the research that's featured in the book is that we are at the end of this period of loyalty. 87% of our customers shop around. Dramatic difference in just 10 years. And McKinsey goes on to say that the sales funnel is gone, that the customer journey is a tangled mess. Google created a series of white papers last fall. It's the fall of 2018. And they documented how every customer journey, even people searching for the same things online, are completely different. There's no way to map it. And again, this is a very unusual idea for me as a traditional marketer, thinking, well, what do you mean there's no sales funnel? What do you mean there's no customer journey? I mean, there is a customer journey and there is a sales funnel, but it's probably not the type of customer journey that's in your PowerPoint deck.
Mark, can I interject
Yeah,
here?
please do.
So, did you know that the sales funnel was created in France in the 1800s?
Did not know that.
And I read that McKinsey customer journey article. And Michaela, please Google McKinsey customer journey and share that PDF and that article with the audience.
The first one, Michaela, was in 2009, and they updated it in 2018 with new research. So, but definitely the 2009 one, that's the famous one. That sort of got this all started.
I actually use that in every presentation where I show the original funnel that they actually used to teach at 500 Hat Startup Ecosystem, the funnel. And it's really more of a pretzel. It's a journey.
That's right.
Yeah. And basically it's a loop, and you need to be top of mind as a trusted advisor in that loop.
Exactly.
But where you are the person they go to. And that's why, like what you've done, Mark, where you give your knowledge away on a daily basis, you become the trusted advisor. And if Coca-Cola or AT&T is going to hire somebody to help them with their marketing, they hire you. And that's what we all need to become, is stop being slick willy salespeople and start
Yeah.
becoming the trusted advisor where you're top of line when they need your products or services.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point. That is the game today. If you're not at top of mind and you're not in the at least top three of that consideration set all the time, you're going to lose. And that doesn't come from advertising anymore. People don't see advertising like they used to. For many digital natives today, their advertising consumption is down 95% in the last 5 years. Why? Because they're watching television on Netflix and on Amazon, no ads. They're listening to their music on Spotify, or they're listening to an audiobook, or they're listening to podcasts, no ads. They've got ad blockers on their phones. And so these ways that we used to try to connect aren't working anymore. And as John says, it's creating value every day. It's entering the conversation every day in a way that's interesting and inspiring and helpful and entertaining that keeps you at the top of mind. So great point. Great point, John. So now we're on number 4. I'm going to cover 5 points today. So get your questions ready because we're getting close to the Q&A and discussion time. So this is a great quote, an idea that came from a friend of mine at Adidas. He said, today, to win, you have to be fans of your fans. You have to put your customers at the center of your marketing story. He said, customers are telling us, stop telling us about heroes, about movie stars, about these athletes. We want to be the heroes. And I want to give an example of the finest piece of content marketing, corporate content marketing I've seen in a long, long time. And I wish I could show you the video, but videos don't work very well on webinars. It's sort of perilous to try that. But I want to tell you the story. So this is Alex Honnold. He was recently featured in that solo, what's that called? Free solo movie that was created by National Geographic. Alex was the first person to climb the face of El Capitan in Yosemite Park without any safety equipment, without any ropes. And this is like the height of his sport. And people just think, well, you're crazy. These are the people who are like riding bikes over glaciers and trekking across Antarctica. So they created, North Face created this film called Question Madness, because a lot of people think these people are mad, that they're crazy. And what they did is they assembled user-generated content. Now think how powerful this is. This is videos from YouTube and Instagram from their customers. It's customers crying and laying in hospital rooms and bleeding and screaming in anguish. And then the music swells and it shows them winning. It shows them achieving. And you can see some of the words here. It turns obsessed and it flips it to devoted. It takes pain and flips it to perspective. And it's incredibly effective. And I think one of the coolest things is one of the first comments under this video, which has received more than 8 million views now, is, now that's how you advertise. I just got finished telling you how there is no more advertising, right? The old advertising, people don't see that paid advertising. This was not a paid ad. North Face put it on YouTube for people to discover on their own and enjoy on their own and share on their own. It's been seen now more than 8 million times. So let's look at some of the lessons. What made this so amazing? What made this so effective? Number one, as I said, the customer is the hero. People don't want to hear about heroes anymore. They want to be the hero. They want to be the center of the story. The other thing here is the customer is the marketer, right? That's one of the main lessons that we talked about at the beginning of this webinar. The customer is carrying our story forward. Our customer is defining the brand. And look at what North Face is doing here. They're turning the job over to their customers. They're using the customer videos, the customer stories to connect in this amazing, uplifting, inspiring, emotional way. The other thing that's so significant about this, and I've got an entire chapter in my book about this, North Face helped people belong. This is a group of people that they're misfits, right? They spend all their time in vans, traveling around the country, trying to find the best weather and the next rock to climb or the next trail to run. And so people see them as being obsessed and crazy. And here's what North Face did in this video. They said, "You're okay. You do belong. And specifically, you belong to us." It's incredibly powerful. We have a belonging crisis in our world today. We think we're connected. We think you just go on social media and you can find a friend and you're part of a community. But the research shows that the more time people spend on the web, the more time people spend on social media, the more alone and isolated and depressed they are. And yet there is a role for companies to help people belong. I'll be honest, as I was writing this part of the book, I was skeptical about this. I was skeptical about the ability of companies to create community. But it's happening. And we see it today with John and with Nimble and the things that he's doing and the people that love him and love his company and support him. I mean, Nimble has an amazing community. So it is possible. Go ahead,
Mark,
John. I know this is a big part of your whole marketing, John.
well, I really believe that the core of humanity, the desire of every human being is to be seen, heard, wanted, and loved. That's
Yeah,
it.
right.
They when and the best gift you can give to any human being is your presence. And and that means if you're in the grocery store, put your phone down and actually look the checker in the eye and give them that gift of your presence or at least a smile. But if you think about if a marketer or a company being able to tap into the humanity of the constituency around them, they could change the world. And Defender Milk was a company that made powdered milk in New Zealand in the 1800s, and they were struggling against other powdered milk companies. And mothers would send them letters about how do you feed my babies, and they compiled them all into a book that outsold the Bible. That there were more copies of that book, and they basically eventually became Glaxo Wellcome, a worldwide drug company. And so
All right.
this idea has been around for a long, long time. Mark, look at what Subaru did with their brand and supporting the LGTB community. Are you aware of what they did and basically by supporting and having conversations with that community that they basically sort of reestablished the Subaru brand? Have you ever heard that story?
I'm familiar with that, and American Eagle is doing the same thing, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. And somebody listening today, Joni Silva, who's part of the voiceover community, the voiceover community has naturally adopted Nimble, and they are our storytellers. They are our salespeople, and we love them and the fact that there's this tight knit community that communicates together, and they belong amongst themselves, and we now belong with them. And I think that what you're talking about here is so powerful. And I think that this chapter is definitely something that I'm going to read tonight because I've started your book. I haven't gotten to this chapter, but this resonates with me.
Well, I really think it's the most one of the best parts of the book, and certainly the one that I am most emotionally connected to because we don't really have a choice. We've got customers where loyalty is in decline, and the thing that's lacking is emotion. McKinsey said that. The reason that loyalty is in decline is because we're lacking emotion, because we're just broadcasting to people. We're just telling people. And to join those like-minded islands, people want us to be a friend. They want us to be consistent. And that kind of leads to the next
Can we
slide.
stop here? Can you
Yeah,
back up one?
yeah,
I have I want to make this as interactive as possible because I think we
mhm,
all learn more. We've got a
sure.
question from the audience,
Yeah.
from Sarah, and she said many of these points are great, but they're really applicable to consumer marketing. Any wisdom for B2B marketers? And I just want to share that Nimble is a business product and
Mm-hmm.
we're adopted by businesses. Now,
Mm-hmm.
people use it individually and you can call them consumers, but they're basically people trying to build a business. And so we're used by individuals and teams in small, medium, large enterprise companies, and we practice a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. So I believe it's applicable to not just B2C or B2B, but P2P and H2H, as our dear friend Brian likes to say. What do you think,
Yeah.
Mark?
Well, absolutely, because you think about B2B, it's built more on relationships even than B2C, because typically you're comparing different products. The sales cycle might be long, the stakes might be high because of the expense. And at the end of the day, what might make the difference is you want to connect with someone who's not going to let you down. You're going to want to connect with someone ultimately who's a friend. And I'll give you an example. I won't name the company, but there's a B2B company that I've been working with, and they know that I do mentoring, that I mentor inner city kids. And so every once in a while, they'll send me like a gift pack of stuff that I can take to these kids. Now, that's paying attention. That's paying attention to me and my life and really hitting me in a place of my life that means a lot. And there's lots of examples out there where you're just connecting in a human way that gets you invited to that island, and it keeps you there by being a friend. Sending me a package like that, that's something that a friend does, and that company has become a friend. So I think in particular, especially with B2B, there's lots of examples like that, and there are some good case studies in the book as well. So thank you very much for that question, by the way, Sarah. That's awesome. And I'll probably use some of these questions as blog posts because that's how I roll. You're inspiring me today. So the last one is be relevant, consistent, and superior. And this sort of reflects the highly competitive world that we live in today. And some people might be familiar with this term content shock, something that I coined in 2014 that's sort of become an industry description of how hard it is to rise above the noise and be the signal today. So to do that, you've got to be relevant. You've got to be interesting and connected to your customers. Two, you've got to be consistent. It's John mentioned this earlier. You can't just show up as an advertisement every once in a while. You have to be out there creating value, being part of that consideration cycle all the time. And then finally, and this is hard, but you have to be superior. You have to create some sort of value, some sort of idea or content or connection that's better than your competitors. And that's a constant fight. It's a constant battle. And you have to build trust into everything you do, because today our customers are naturally mistrustful of our companies and our brands. When I wrote this book, someone asked me, well, Mark, you write about this marketing rebellion. There's a purpose for every rebellion. What's the end game? What is the purpose of this rebellion? And I said, in my mind, all of the consumers, all of our customers are like banging on the door of our companies and our marketing agencies and our ad agencies, and they're holding up this sign that says, respect me, respect me, stop spamming, stop conning me, respect my time, respect my privacy, respect me as a person, see me as a person. And I think that's what this rebellion is about. When you open up my book, this is the first thing that you see. It's this photo. It's not a title. It's not an author page. It's this picture, because I wanted to make this point in a dramatic way that this is the rebellion. And oh, by the way, the customers are going to win. We need to listen to them. And I want to end with this idea once again that, all these legacy products, all that we grew up with, from Procter and Gamble or from Unilever, they're dying because they were built on advertising impressions. But today, our businesses and companies will be built on human impressions, because it's this simple. Number one, we don't see ads anymore. Number two, when we see them, we don't trust them. Trust in businesses, brands, and advertising has declined 10 years in a row. But who do we trust? We trust each other. We trust entrepreneurs. We trust people at the companies. Why do people love Tesla? Because it's Elon Musk. Who's the person that we love at Ford? There isn't one. Increasingly, the personal brand is the brand. It's those human connections, those human impressions that create the brands today. So that's the end of my formal presentation. And I'd like to thank John once again for his leadership, his kind friendship and support of me, and for allowing me to be here today with all of Nimble's friends and this wonderful community. And I'd be happy to open up the discussion some more, John, and address some questions.
Well, Mark, I want to interject something that I strongly believe about marketing. I think that as individuals and companies, we have to stop talking about our products and services. Nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
We need to start talking about how other people can become better, smarter, faster, because I believe people buy better versions of themselves. They don't buy great products. And so I think that you shouldn't just talk about even how other people can become better, smarter, faster in and around the areas of promise, your products and services, but you should share a little bit of your soul as well. Because I believe people connect on what I call the 5 F's of life: family, friend, food, fun, and fellowship. These are the commonalities that we share that I used to teach salespeople when they went in somebody's office to look at the wall in order to see the books and degrees and the knickknacks and photos, to find and share commonalities to earn the intimacy and trust so that they do open up to them about their business issues, which as a professional you can then solve. But those business relationships evolved into human relationships when you brought them home to dinner or to a ball game or whatever. And I think we lost a little bit of that with mass manufacturing and madman marketing. And I think we're shifting back to 100 years ago, when brands were built on the promises you make and the experience you deliver. I think that we're going through a renaissance, if not a revolution, of relationships, where we're getting back to a small village. That social media is increasing the transparency and the expectations that we have of each other and of the businesses that we work with. What do you think?
You might even call it a rebellion, John.
All we are saying is give peace a chance. All right, so let's get some questions rolling here. Michaela, if you could share the Google Doc with any questions that you've compiled from the audience, now's a good time to ask them. And while we're doing that, I just want to share with you, Mark, that we got a lot of people out there who are basically posting in the questions things that they just bought the book.
Oh, thank you. Here's my promise to you. You will not be disappointed. This is my best personal work. And if you spend any time with my blog, my podcast, or my books, I will never let you down. That is always in my mind, because I never, ever take for granted the time that people spend with me, and I will never let you down. And I know you'll love the book.
Okay, so while we're waiting for some questions, let's go into the slide, the next second from the next slide. It's the offer thing, because I think we're going to give some books away today. So there it is right there. So we're going to give away a few books today. And so all you need to do, if you haven't tried Nimble before, is go sign up for Nimble at that URL. And Michaela, if you could put that in the chat box, nim.li rebellion. And if you're already an existing customer, just write into the care at Nimble email for a chance to win as well. And so, Michaela, let's see. There we go. Oh, there's the Google Doc. I'm so sorry, Michaela. I did not see that. So, is that the questions? That looks like the slides. Mark, I am stumbling with the questions here. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the questions either.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about humanity and engagement as a company. So I really believe that many companies make the mistake of thinking that marketing is something that marketing does. And my philosophy is, like I shared with you earlier, that a brand is built on the promises that you make and the experience that you deliver. And much of the experience that your company delivers is through your customer-facing business team members. So I think that for a company to build its brand, that it needs to empower the team to build their brand, and for each of them to share their areas of expertise that they deliver on in their respective departments or fields. And then, rather than just like Nimble Twitter account sharing content, the entire team not only shares content, but also shares a little bit of themselves and connects in a human way with our constituency. And I think that is what's humanized our Nimble brand and built this sort of tight community with not just prospects and customers, but ideally they're influencers as well, because there's no way you can scale by advertising to your audience of customers. And that's actually how I built the Goldmine brand, where I reached out and connected with the
here's a very relevant question, because I'm starting to see the questions here. This is a question from Ron Harris that comes right to this point. He says, when is CRM going to catch up with this new model for funnel?
You know, there's actually history here. So Ron Harris is one of the top Goldmine resellers from 30 years ago, and he currently sells Microsoft Dynamics. And Microsoft Dynamics is an excellent CRM. But what is the CRM? A CRM is a database that you basically define what you want out of it and what you got to force salespeople to type into it. And the reason they call it Salesforce, you have to force salespeople to use it. Nobody in their right mind would use a CRM if they weren't beat on to do it, because you work for the CRM, you have to go to it to use it. It doesn't work for you by building itself and work with you everywhere, giving you context and insights on relationships and people and helping you engage. So Ron, the answer to that is Nimble, because Nimble actually works with Office and Dynamics and ties them together. Humanness. And the reality is Goldmine was less a CRM and more of a contact manager. And that's what's missing in CRMs today is the relationships, the contacts. Even though CRM stands for customer relationship management, it is actually customer reporting management, because it is a reporting and command and control system. And relationships are managed now in email, Outlook, and now social. And today's CRMs aren't really designed for that. What do you think, Mark?
You know, I'll tell you, John, I agree with you. And I think that what you're doing at Nimble is bringing in other information to sort of flesh out I guess you call it just the character of people in the database is an amazing way to start connecting the dots there. But I think technology has a long way to go, because we've been so focused on the sales process instead of the true customer journey. So I don't know. Interesting times ahead. We've got another question from Joni. She's saying, are you saying that marketing to a list is not the way to go? Or should I get the list and then go over it one by one to personalize? What do you think about that?
Well, I still think that we all drive eyeballs to our identities, right? So as a
Mm-hmm.
person or a business, you still need to create identities in the places where your customers have conversations, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc., and share relevant content to establish yourself as a trusted advisor and drive them back to a website where you further share who you are
Mm-hmm.
and how you add value. And that's what you do,
Mm-hmm.
Tony, as a voiceover person. But then once you capture it, start a conversation, a connection, you need to turn that connection into a conversation and then a relationship, which can drive results. And what you're doing is you're trying to get voiceover opportunities, but they're not going to think about you if there isn't a connection
Yeah.
where you basically established a relationship so you can stay top of mind and shared how you might add value. So yes, marketing is still relevant. It still has a role. You still need to do the basics. But I think that the problem is with Mad Men marketing, we forgot about the humanness of the connections and relationships, and that you can't just automate that. You actually have to get in the river and swim with your customers and connect with them in a human way.
You know, another way to look at this in terms of the relationship between lists and sales in this new environment is I get pitched every day. I get pitched by 25 different companies who are looking for something. They want me to do something. And I don't even open those emails, Joni. Now, if it's somebody that I know, if it's John Ferrara, I open it up every time. And I always say yes, because we have a relationship, we have a connection. So somehow, it's just as John said, there might be some role for a list in terms of discovery, awareness, but there's people are just so deluged with stuff today. I think you've somehow got to fight through that noise and really roll up your sleeves and build those connections that are going to lead to human benefit, business benefits.
So, Mark, there's a question from Pel Vera here.
Yeah.
And she's saying sometimes it's hard to stand up for the human side of marketing. There's so many hackers and funnel makers out there that try to
Mm-hmm.
bowl the conversation over that I finally get to talk to the person and they're so gun shy. It's hard, but rewording during conversational marketing, LinkedIn has always been my key for business conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk to this for a second. You know, a chair has how many legs? At least three, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about relationships, LinkedIn is one leg of a chair. It's like walking in my business lobby. If you walk into my Nimble business lobby, you're going to get to know a little bit about me, my business persona. But ultimately, you need to take that business relationship into a human relationship, which means shifting it from a LinkedIn connection to maybe email and calendar interactions to maybe a GoToMeeting or face to face. But ultimately, if you do all those things right, it then shifts into a Facebook and Instagram and maybe a Twitter relationship. In fact, in many cases, it starts on Twitter, then gets to LinkedIn, email, calendar, and then to Facebook and Instagram. And that's the human side, the 5 F's of life, the family, friend, food, fun, and fellowship. Mark and I don't connect. We haven't established our deep relationship because we both teach and preach marketing. We established our relationship because of our love of family and food and fellowship and my desire to go visit him at his lake house.
Mm-hmm.
And cooking and these are the things, those commonalities that I'm talking about, and you don't really deal with that side of a person in LinkedIn. And so my advice in regards to taking these connections you establish and bringing them to the human level is LinkedIn has a perfect place for that, but it's just one leg of a chair. What do you think, Mark?
Well, first of all, Pell, I want to. Is Pell the first name or Vera? I
It
don't want
is.
to.
I
I
think
don't.
it might. I'm not sure. It
I
says
don't want to say
Calvin.
it wrong, but I want to be
Yeah.
respectful. So I respect
Yeah.
you, whatever your correct name is. I don't want to. So I really like this question because it hints at a real problem, and that is leadership. That that all the things that John said are correct, but the problem is that a lot of leaders don't recognize that today. They're driven by quarterly numbers, and relationships aren't. And so it's this is one of the concerns that I address directly in the last part of my book. It's the second to last chapter, saying, look, I know with all my heart this is where we need to go. We don't have a choice. We have to adopt a human-centered approach to marketing. But because we're so wedded to legacy metrics and dashboards that we've got to put in a quarterly report, and we've got so many leaders who don't want to change, that have, they like to be wined and dined by the ad agencies that are creating ads that don't work anymore. It's going to be a difficult change. It really is. And it has to come from the top. There's no such thing as a grassroots cultural change. It has to come from the leader. The leader has to embrace this viewpoint. And so you've got two choices. Number one, hopefully you've got a leader who understands and you're going to be in a happy company. Or number two, it's going to take some education to help these leaders understand where the world really is today. Marketers are asleep. Most marketers are asleep and they don't know they're asleep. And that's why I kind of wrote this book is it's the wake up call. Hopefully it'll get some of this change going.
So there's another question here from Nathalie, where um, she's asking, don't you think our customers are buying corporate philosophy and values behind the service or product, and how that the business developer has to present? Um, so, you know, I think that if you look at a company like GoDaddy 10
Mm-hmm.
years ago with their football ads, where they were demeaning women
Mm-hmm.
as objects.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and today they're really talking about, I think they've shifted their conversation and their values. But I don't think that anybody reads a mission statement at a company website. You can't tell them who you are. You demonstrate who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and then they define you. Like maybe like I don't know what's a good example of that. I think Subaru might be a good example of that. What do you think, Mark?
This is it's a very big question, and it's a very important question. And I wrote a whole chapter of the book on this idea of meaning and purpose. So let me say three things about it real quick. Number one, in this world of diminishing loyalty, the most powerful thing you can do is align with the values of your customer. We saw this happen with Nike and the Colin Kaepernick thing. We see this today with companies like American Eagle, some of the other companies that John mentioned earlier. But it's not for everyone. It doesn't have to be for everyone. And this is a thing that happens in marketing. Marketers all flock to the hottest thing and they screw it up and they ruin it. And this is not for everything. You've got to do a lot of introspection, a lot of research to really figure out how to align with your customers and do it right and do it well, because you can't go back. Number two, aligning with customer meaning and values does not have to be polarizing. It can be uplifting. It can be unifying. It could be something as simple as showing up at community events. So the third part is, I think, rather than doing marketing based on a mission statement or something, listen to one of the points that I made today. You can't be in a community. Be of the community. Don't talk about what you believe in. because nobody believes you anyway. I'll tell you a quick thing. A big company sent me this ad. They wanted my input on this ad thing they were going to do, and I won't talk about who the company was, but they're basically saying in this ad, look at what we're doing. We used to support this men's sports team. Now we're going to support this women's sports team in the same way and pay them the same as what we paid the men. And they were going to go brag about this. I said, what you're saying is we've stopped being bad. We're normal. We're normal now. That's not a point of differentiation. That's not aligning with meaning and purpose. That's basically saying we've stopped being stupid. So you've got to be really careful with this. And the best way to do it is just go and show up. If you've got a value around equality, show up for events, support events. Don't be in the community, be of the community.
Love that, Mark. We've got time for one last question. And this is a question from Joni from the voiceover community again. And she's sharing that she engages in relevant and authentic ways in places like Facebook to engage with e-learning designers and producers to add value to their conversations. And she wants to take those conversations out of Facebook into face-to-face. And she doesn't have contact information for the people that she talks to on Facebook, and she's not sure what to do about it at that point. And I want to share a story with you, Joni, about my journey of connecting with somebody from a soft connection in Twitter to a face-to-face breakfast. So, Mark, on a daily basis, I give my knowledge away because I believe if you teach people to fish, you'll figure out yourself fishing poles. So I inspire and educate on a daily basis about how people can be better, smarter, faster at social sales and marketing. I also share my passions in astronomy, photography, food, and family, and other things to humanize my brand. One day, Nimble notified me that somebody was talking about me that had high reach and relevance of the personas I typically connect to, because Nimble listens to people talking about my team, myself, my brand, enriches them with people and company data, and then notifies me. So I went and looked at the conversation in Twitter and saw that this person was responding to a CRM analyst from Salesforce who said that CRM isn't about command and control, it's about empowering customer-facing business team members. And this person said, bullshit, it is about command and control. When are sales managers going to loosen their grip? And isn't this what John Farrar has been teaching and preaching and building with Nimble? So I wanted to know who he was, so I Nimbled him. Nimble has a Chrome browser that auto-magically builds a record on somebody, and it actually gave me his phone number and his email, his title, and told me that he was the head of data and CRM at Disney. So what I did was I responded effectively in the stream at the moment, but I also emailed him because I believe he gave me permission to reach out to him because of the way he talked about me so endearingly. And he talked about me, not that he knew me from what I stand for, what I talk about, and how I represent and engage with people. I emailed him to thank him personally. That email shifted to a LinkedIn invite, and then a LinkedIn conversation and messaging. And eventually in that conversation, I learned that not only does his daughter go to my school, but he lives in my city. And I took that conversation from digital to human and invited him to breakfast. Now, that is the way that life is working today. You need to share content to establish yourself as top of mind trusted advisor. You need to take those connections into conversations, into face-to-face, into human connections, and ideally listen and learn enough about that person where you can find ways to add value. And if you do that at scale, you can build a gold mine.
Well said.
And that's so that I think we're at past the top of the hour. I want to thank you, Mark, for teaching and preaching and inspiring me today. I look forward to seeing you at Social Media Marketing World so we can connect in person. You continue to amaze me, man.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful opportunity to connect with your community today, and thanks everyone for obliging me and listening. And I'd love to connect with you on the social channels, LinkedIn and my blog. Stop by and say hi. And thanks again for John and Nimble for having me today.
Thank you, Mark. And please reach out and connect with me. Let me, our Nimble team and myself know how we might help you grow today and in the future. Because I believe that we're on this planet to grow our souls by helping other people grow theirs, and you grow faster by helping other people grow. So let us know how we can help. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Michaela, for facilitating the webinar. Have a great day.